All right. I just realized something is if you look at an alcoholic, you would say, oh, they like to drink, but they don't though. There's no alcoholic on earth that goes, yay, I'm an alcoholic. Wee, yay. There's normal people that say that, but they're not actually an alcoholic. A real alcoholic is not happy about being an alcoholic. A real addict is never happy about being addicted. The addiction is the fact that they feel like shit most of the time without the thing that they're addicted to. By the time that the addiction has overtaken their life, they don't enjoy it anymore. It's just the only thing that makes them feel normal. It's the only thing that makes them feel baseline, functional. By the time it's an addiction, you don't get high anymore. You're not having fun anymore. The fun is getting addicted. Being addicted sucks. And that's why most people don't understand that, because they've never gotten addicted to shit. And anything that they have gotten addicted to, they forgot, or they thought that it was something else, or that it didn't apply to anything else. It was just its own thing. And it's all the same shit. You can get addicted to killing people. You can get addicted to raping children. You can get addicted to child porn. You can get addicted to beating your wife. You can get addicted to anger. You can get addicted to sadness. You can get addicted to anything. As long as your life revolves around it to the detriment of you and everyone in your life, it's an addiction. And you can get addicted to literally anything. Anything. So that preface is necessary to understand what I'm about to say, which is I believe that every being in existence has an innate sense of what is good and what is evil, but that sense gets misinterpreted by the mind. And the sickness happens in the mind because the soul is so simple, it can't lie to you. When you feel like killing someone, you don't feel happy. You don't feel glad. You don't feel like you're in a good mood. You're in a dark mood, and you don't like that. And that's why you want to kill that person, is because you don't like the way they made you feel, because they made you feel like shit so bad that you wanted to kill them. So it's not like you don't know that that's evil. You know it. It's just that your mind tells you this stupid story that, oh, well, yeah, if you kill this person, then after you kill them, you'll be happy. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, if I'm miserable now and I'll be happy if they're dead, then obviously it's good that I killed them. But it isn't, because in your soul, you don't feel good about the thing that you're doing, that you're claiming it's good. You're not feeling good about the thing that you're claiming is good. No one does. No one feels good when they kill someone. No one feels good when they rape someone. No one feels like a happy little 6-year-old girl getting hugged by her daddy and have, soft served ice cream and little kisses and hugs and butterflies flying through the air when they're murdering a child. Okay, they don't feel like that. That doesn't make sense. And for people to think that that does make sense is stupid and doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to think that there are people that don't have peoplehood, that there are people who are not people. That's stupid. That does not make sense. They're people, yeah, but they're not really people. But they're people, but they're not people. But they're people, but they're not people. They are people. You just don't like them because they don't make you feel like you're a person, because they're so weird. They're so far beyond anything that you feel like you are, that to classify them in the same category as you in any way, shape, or form is alien to you and makes you feel like you're not you. That is not anything to say about them. That is to say about you. So when you say that child molesters are not people, that's not true. They are people. The reason that you don't feel like they are people is because you feel bad about what they've done and you wish it didn't happen. And your mind tells you this stupid, sick story that if you killed them, it would be good. Except it isn't good to kill people, which is why you don't like them. Because either they're killing the kids or they're raping them, which is destroying their lives, and that destruction makes you feel bad, which is why you want to destroy the destruction, which makes no sense because destruction feels bad. Why would you want to be the very thing that you're claiming is not a person? And that makes you feel self-loathing. and then you're not a person to yourself, which is what I had just described when you did agree with me, except now you don't because you feel like I twisted it around or said something totally different. It's not different. It's exactly the same thing repeated twice in two different ways. Every being knows right from wrong. They just tell themselves stories about that aren't true, that aren't good, that aren't real, that aren't authentic, that aren't honest. So there are no people who are not people. All people are people. And every person innately knows right from wrong. The reason that people engage in evil is very easy and easily accessible. Every time you see someone else do something evil, you want to destroy them. You want to destroy what they've done. You want them to feel the thing that they have done to someone else, to themselves. You want them to understand that so that they don't do it again, so that they recognize their error and they correct and realign themselves with everyone else that doesn't do that. All of that would make sense if they were you, but they aren't you. It's not that they forgot. It's not that they lost the information. It's that they don't care about that the same way and the same reason that you don't. When you see a child murderer on trial, you want them to fry. That's the same emotion they felt when they murdered the kids that they murdered. It's identical. And the thing is that people just always say no. No, 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 that can't be the same emotion. It is exactly the same emotion. There are not separate emotions for every single act. There are a small set, surprisingly small, set of emotions that every person feels. Sadness, gladness, anger, disgust, all that stuff. Okay, they're simple emotions that everybody feels. It's just that we feel them about different things. So some people feel them about murdering kids. Some people feel it about murdering people who murder kids. But it's the same emotion. It's just being directed at someone else. The Nazis felt it toward the Jews. You feel it towards child predators. I feel it towards you. Everybody feels it towards somebody that they don't like because that person made them feel like they aren't a person. That person displaced them from their own personhood. That person made it, at least to the other person's eyes, impossible for them to function like a normal human being in the face of that. And that's what it really boils down to, is that people who always unequivocally deny and dismiss and don't want to hear anything else and cut me off and say, no, 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 and they don't want to hear anymore. They don't want to listen. They don't want to agree. Those people are afraid to death of being anywhere near the thing that they hate. So much so that they think that it's good to not know anything about it. So the reason that doesn't make sense is because you can't argue that not knowing about something is better than knowing about it, especially if you want it gone. If you want to get rid of something, the last thing that you do is bury your head in the sand and forget that it exists. If you have bed bugs, the last thing that you do is stop yourself from researching bed bugs, because if you don't know how to get rid of them, then they're going to stay. And you don't want bed bugs. I've had them. They suck. You don't want bed bugs to just stick around. So naturally, sensibly, you go on Google and you Google bed bugs. How do you kill bed bugs? You want to know about the bed bugs so you can get fucking rid of them, right? Well, now that I have them, I know now that bed bugs can't survive, the adults can't survive in 115 degree Fahrenheit weather, sustained for, I think it's 3 hours, and that will kill them. But it won't kill their eggs. Their eggs, you have to get rid of it. I think it's 135 degrees Fahrenheit, I want to say. Sustained for like an hour or something like that. And that will kill their eggs. Well, I didn't know that before. So how is not knowing that going to help me get rid of them? If anything, I should know as much as I can possibly know so that I know how to get rid of them. In fact, it would be even better if I knew how to just get them to go away instead of having to try to kill them. Because if I could get them to go away, then I don't have to worry about murdering them. And that's important to me because anything that you murder is going to evolve to be resistant to that murder. If you give a virus antibiotics, yes, it will kill it, mostly. But there will always be this last little bit that doesn't die, and that's the part that reproduces. And next thing you know, you've got an antibiotic-resistant virus. What are you going to do about that? Oh, we'll just give it another antibiotic. Great. Then it'll be resistant to that, and so on and so on. That's why killing things is always the least efficient way of dealing with it, because there's always one that escapes, and then it reproduces, and then the offspring that it has are even more difficult to kill than the fucking host was, or the parent, or whatever. So if I kill off all the bed bugs with this spray, they'll just get resistant to the spray. If I kill off all the bed bugs with heat, then I'll have to deal with the heat, I guess. Maybe that's the only real way, I guess. But doing stuff like that is brutal, because if I have to try to heat my apartment to 115 degrees, or really 135, and heat the entire apartment to 135 degrees, that is a hell of a project. That's not something that I can do just offhandedly. I can boil my sheets, but I can't heat my entire apartment up to 135 degrees and sustain it for 3 hours off a space heater. It's just not going to work. So killing things is always least efficient. You should try to get them to just go away and just go somewhere else and go do whatever you do over there, where I don't have to deal with it, where it doesn't affect me or my own. And then, that's the best that I can do, because I'm not killing you. I'm not killing anyone. I'm just defending my shit. I'm just making sure that my shit is kept secure. That's all. So that is what is right to do. And everyone knows that intrinsically. Everyone feels that that is the real right answer. It's just the most difficult, because you can't just kill it and just be done with it. But everyone knows that you can't just kill everything. There are a lot of things that you either can't kill at all, or there are things that can kill you, but you can't kill it. Or there are things that are so useful in so many other ways that to kill it would be a waste, etc. So killing is just always the least efficient. It doesn't make any sense to do that unless that's the only thing that you have. So, I saw a video clip of this incel dude that ran over a whole bunch of people with his car. And the officer that pulled him over, he's like, "Get out of your car." And the dude grabs his wallet out of his pocket and holds it towards the officer like it's a gun. And he's pretending that it's a gun. And he's like, I have a gun, shoot me, kill me. And the officer's like, "No, I don't care. I'm not going to shoot you." So he gets out his baton and he restrains the dude and he saves that dude's life. And so many people are probably going, "Well, why? You should just kill him. He wanted to die. Oh, why can't you just kill him?" Because killing people's wrong. Everybody knows that. It just is. It's just wrong. You don't add more dead bodies to the tally because there's so many dead bodies. Well, there's so many dead bodies. Let's add one more. That doesn't make sense. The whole problem is that there's so many dead bodies. You don't add to the problem by committing it yourself. You fix it. And that's what that police officer did. So it's something that every being knows intrinsically. It's something that beings can forget, and they can tell themselves stories, and they can come up with all kinds of mental imagery and use their imagination to try to somehow rationalize what they're doing, but they feel like it's wrong. And one of the things I've noticed as I've gotten older is the power of feelings. And you can't fake that. You can fake pretty much anything except that, but you can't fake that because there's not room for fakery. It just is what it is. It's so fundamental, you can't fake it. Now, then there's people that say, well, what about actors? And what about sociopaths that mimic that? No, those people feel those feelings. That's what makes Johnny Depp the best actor, is he can feel that on command. There are people who can make themselves cry on command. Oh, it's just a mimicry. It is not. They actually feel like crying, and then they cry. And they have such self-control that they can actually put themselves in a mental state that will make them cry. They'll tell themselves a story in their head. They'll present themselves some image. They'll remember some past event. They will mentally put themselves in a situation that they know will elicit this particular subjective reaction, this emotion. And that is how they act. They actually become that state. That is what they are paid the big bucks to do, if they're really good at it, if they're a good actor. If they're a bad actor, then they just play themselves, and they don't have any control over their emotions. They just react to things in a way that many people connect to. But those actors, you'll notice they're not as good because they always play the same character. The best actors play the most versatile characters because they can make themselves feel any emotion for any reason, for any scenario. And they can fit that into the character motivation. And that's all about the motivation, because that's what drives the actions that the character does throughout the story. Whatever they're doing something, there's a reason behind that. And the actor gets behind that. That's what they do. To act is to look at what the reason is for them to do this thing. And then they embody that. They take that and they put it in their body. They put themselves in that situation. Their body reacts. And then the audience gets to see that reaction. Now, if they're a bad actor, they will at least authentically portray their own emotions according to, whatever scenario that they would be in. In that case, they just simply find themselves and then find characters that are identical to themselves, or at least similar enough that they don't have to try very hard. And that's how you can tell. They're still an actor. They're still a better actor than a layperson, because they're able to authentically place themselves in those situations. They're able to actually accurately represent themselves. And in that way, they are authentic. So they are still an actor. They're still a better actor than the average layperson. But they're a bad actor because they can only play themselves. They can still play themselves, at least. It's not like they can't play anyone, like most of us. They can at least play themselves. They got one character in their deck, okay? But a good actor has a whole bunch, because they've been through a whole lot and they know how to go there again. And when they put themselves in those scenarios and they actually jerk their own tears, that jerks our tears. And so all of that is to say, I forgot what my point was to bring that up. That is how you get really close to what authenticity is. That's an example with art. Or with acting, excuse me. Another example would be I've noticed, like, if I sing, I have to actually feel the emotion that's being displayed in the song. If the song is about, oh no, my ex broke up with me or some shit like that, I have to feel sad already and then vent that through the music authentically, because I'm a bad actor. So unlike a professional singer who can make themselves feel whatever emotion that they want, for the audience's benefit, Michael Jackson comes to mind. I'm a bad actor, so I can only really portray what I authentically feel already, what I already felt like before I ever got onto the stage. And then I just don't lose it as I walk onto the stage. But I don't gain anything new by walking on it. I don't get any further than that. I just go that far. If I was a really good singer, then I could put myself in an emotion on command. And I could be like, oh, it's a song about my ex leaving. Okay, I'm going to remember when I went through that and, just feel that now. Make myself feel that right now. And that's part of the performance of the performing arts, is that you can do it on command. You can do it right now. At this specific time, predicted, I will be in this state at this time. If you can do that, then you're a master, because you can actually, it's like a scientist. If I put these reactants together, I predict that at this exact time that they'll be in this state. If you're that good at it, it's like that. It turns into a science. And there is a science to every art, just like there's an art to every science. You can get that good, and you can be a master, and you can actually ascend all the way up like that. But that is because your center, your soul, your emotive reactor never shuts down. And it has such a tiny little pinhole of a singularity that it has to play with, that it can't lie to you, because there's not enough room for it to lie. It's sort of like how a lot of people used to say kids can't lie. I mean, we know they can now because we're cynical and we've seen a lot of shit. But back in the day, people used to say that, oh yeah, you ask a kid this, and it used to be a thing. It's like kids say the darndest things. You can always ask a kid because they'll always tell you the straight up answer that they feel because they're not old enough to learn how to fake it yet and lie. They'll just say whatever. Oh yeah, it's like this. And it's funny because it's so blunt, but they're so innocent that you can't really be mad at them for saying it. So it's just kind of cute. It's funny. So that's what I'm talking about authenticity. Everybody's born with that. We lose it when we get older. The irony is that we actually are wiser as children because we don't fake it. We don't know enough to be foolish. It's weird, right? You would think, well, no, back in the day, I used to be a fool. No, back in the day, you were a genius. Now you're a fool because you forgot how to get back to that state of raw, authentic being without thinking, without worrying about what everybody is saying to themselves when they're looking at you. You forget that and you just go right into the moment. Play with the bubbles. Why? Because they're bubbles. They're fun. They're fun to play with. But when you're an adult, then you have to analyze it. Is that okay? Can I play with bubbles? Am I allowed to play with bubbles? I don't see anyone else playing with bubbles. If I play with bubbles, is that bad? Is there something wrong with me? And so then we forget and we lose it. But everybody has that intrinsic fascination with bubbles. They're just fun. So it's stuff like that. You don't ever lose that if you don't want to lose it. You can retain that throughout your entire life. And I think people should. I think it's healthy for them to keep that with them and not have it get corrupted by the sins of the world. Or even our own sins, I guess. But it's part of being authentic is you keep that pinhole a pinhole. You don't stretch it out and rupture your sphincter trying to impress some other person in society. Now, if you're doing acting, if you're doing a performative art and you can actually make yourself, change the direction of that pinhole and you change your orientation, you change the way that you're oriented, the thing you're pointed at shifts, then you've got a point that's directed at something. And that's not the same thing as rupturing it. It's not the same thing as stretching it out. As long as it doesn't think that it is the thing that it's trying to portray or point at. And that's what happens when we fake something, is that we try to become the thing that we're pointing at. And when we don't think that way, when we lose ourselves in the moment, that's when we are actually becoming the thing that we're pointing at, because we're only focusing on the pointing. So then we become the pointing, and then the pointing and the thing that we're pointing at are very easy to see. If we distort that by putting the thing that we're trying to be into the orientation, then it doesn't line up, and we end up with this inauthenticity. And I didn't explain that very well. I'm not very versed in trying to explain the mechanics of this because I've got so many topics that I have to cover. But the main point here is that we don't ever lose our spirit, and we don't ever lose our spiritual connection to God, our creator. We don't ever lose our spiritual connection to what is goodness. So there is no one that cannot ever be saved. There is no one that ever just is evil and just feels good when they do evil acts. No one feels good when they do something evil. No one. There are people out there that try to rationalize it. There are people out there who try to fake it. There are people out there who will just lie about it. But there are no people who feel good when they do evil. It doesn't happen. The idea that there are people who feel good when they do evil is so alien, so absurd, and so objectifying, not only to the person that they're portraying as if they felt good when they did something evil, but also themselves. Because like I said, if that's true for them, how do you know it's not true for you? How do you know it's not true for everyone you know? How do you know that they're not just all faking it? Oh, I know. No, you don't know. You like to feel like you know. You don't want to know. You want to feel like you know. They're completely different things. And the more that you say that it isn't that way, the more it is that way. If you're the type of person that instantaneously says on the opposite hand that, well, maybe that is me, then it probably isn't. And if you're the type of person that says, no, that definitely isn't me, then it definitely is you. And this is one of those things that I've noticed about people, including myself. If I do this with myself in the moment when I'm pissed off, I won't see it because I'm pissed. But then later on, when I'm calm, and I go back and I revisit it, then I see it. And then I'm like, okay, yep, I did fuck up. And that's why I have to spend so much of my time confessing all of my sins, and why I end up committing them in the first place is because I have yet to develop that instinctual response of calm when I approach some confrontation. I instinctively react with anxiety and anger and fear and hatred, and I want to destroy that thing, like I just did. And so I'm very aware of that, but I'm also aware that every time I have ever felt that, it has felt bad. But while I'm feeling it, my mind rationalizes it as good because my mind thinks that it's leading towards something that it will feel good about later, after some completion. And that's what always happens. When you want to destroy something that you think is destructive, either it isn't destructive or you're so destructive that it doesn't actually help your cause. It ends up hurting it, and you end up being like the thing that you're trying to destroy. It happens almost every single time. In fact, I would argue it happens every time, because destruction doesn't feel good. Creation feels good. That's why having sex feels good to everyone who has it. Now, sex is not rape, so I'm not saying that people who get raped feel good. I'm saying consensual sex, like real sex, not rape. Rape is something else entirely. Rape is violence. That's not sexual. Rape isn't sexual. Rape is violent. It's about power. It's not about getting off. It's not about beauty. It's not about intimacy. It's not about honesty. It's about control and power and domination and destruction and violence. So they're not going to mix. It isn't correct or accurate to say that someone gets off on killing children, for example. It's more accurate to say that there's so much violence condensed in that act that it spills over into other categories where you might call it a drug or a getting off kind of a thing, or a getting high off of it, because it's so violent that it almost transcends violence itself, and it becomes something else that is like getting off on it or getting high on it. There's something else to it because it transcends it, but it is rooted in violence. It appears as if it were sexual or drug related because of the effects, but the cause, the thing that causes it, is not sexual. It's not like, well, this guy hasn't gotten laid in 10 years, so he's going to go rape someone. That's not how that works. People rape people who get laid all the time. Or, excuse me, the rapists who rape people still get laid. They don't not have sex, and then that's what drives them to go rape. The raping is violence. It's destructive. It's rooted in violence. It's not rooted in sex. So that's why those are two independent things. That's why it takes so much more effort to try to understand that than the average person is willing to undergo. But it is necessary if you're going to prevent that problem and cure those people who have it. You can't just afford to dismiss that and be ignorant of it so that it happens to your daughter or your wife because you said, no, that's just something sick. Well, then you can't do anything about it. So then you can't protect her. So if you really do care about her so much, like you just thought in your silly little head, then you would want to learn about what it is that causes these people to do this so that you can figure out how to get them to quit instead of just dismissing it and letting it happen again. So when people say, no, just lock them up and just throw away the key. How many of these people have we locked up so far? And they're still running around on the streets. And then you've got the feminazis saying, oh, well, it's because that's just what men do. No, it isn't. That's something that people learn because they forget who they are. And they forget what life's all about. And they lose their faith in humanity. And they want to destroy humanity. They want to destroy innocence. They want to destroy goodness. So teaching them not to rape is not going to help them. They want to rape. That's why they do it. It's not that they don't know that that's what they're doing. They know they're doing that. That's why they're doing it. All right. So then you have to understand why is it that they do that. It's because they lose faith in humanity. The last thing that we need to do then is lose faith in them by dismissing them, throwing them in a cell, and then forgetting that they exist. That's not going to help them. And how many times do we have to do that before we've already demonstrated it 1,000,000 fucking times over? It does not work. No one ever didn't rape someone because they were afraid they were going to go to jail. By the time somebody's willing to rape someone, they don't care about jail anymore. They lost their fucking nut, dude. They're gone. They don't think anymore. So you have to catch them before they get there. If you're just going to react to it and then just be like, oh, okay, there's another one, go kill him. 10 more are going to pop up in his place. What's the point? You need to figure out why is it that these people even come to this? What is it that they do in order to get to this place? So, in other words, do what Chris Hansen says that has been doing for 30 years on every single show that he's ever done. He asks the same question, and he still has no idea what the answer to that question is. Why are you here? So, if you ask that same question to, I want to say, tens of thousands of dudes at this point that he's gone through on his show, and you still don't know why they're sitting in that seat, Chris, you're not really wanting to know the answer. You've heard that answer so many times. I don't know how that you keep asking it. It's silly. It's pretentious. It's inauthentic. It's dishonest. And it is lacking in integrity, like everything that Chris Hansen has ever done on TV that I've seen. I've never seen a single child predator get caught by the Catch a Predator team. I have seen dumbass after dumbass do things that they've never done in the past and have no record of being ever involved in, get blindsided by some random, overly, excessively aggressive decoy that refuses to take no for an answer and will not stop until they get to that house. Because it's the same reason that cancer societies don't ever cure cancer, because you're paying them not to. You're incentivizing the decoy to catch this guy. Well, you're not going to catch him if you keep attacking him and you keep preying on him and you keep going after him. Then you're the predator. And Chris even mentions this in one of his episodes. He says, well, the predators become the prey. Yeah, no shit. That's the point of your show, Chris. It's not to catch a predator. It's to prey upon random people who don't know any better and pretend that they're predators. Real predators don't do any of this stuff. They don't get excited when the girl says yes. They get excited when the girl says no. That's a predator. You don't lure a predator in with sweets. You lure them in with spices. That's what they want, Chris. That's why they're there. So when you ask these stupid people, why are you here? It's kind of like asking a dumbass, why are you stupid? Most of them are so stupid they don't even know they are stupid, let alone why. They're not going to be able to tell you that. The pretense of the question is the reason that he doesn't ever get the answer. The pretense of the question is that the person that he's asking is a real child predator. And the reason that he doesn't have the answer is because none of the people that he's ever asked actually are, except maybe the first few. If you watch the first season, there are a few in there that really are questionable. Like the rabbi guy, he's pretty fucked up. There's a couple other ones that are really fucked up in the first episode. They catch the same dude doing this like 6 times in a row, back before there were any laws against it. He got away with it like, I want to say 3 times at least by Chris Hansen alone. Not to mention other agencies that have stung the same guy 2 or 3 times. And then they started finally coming out with laws. After that, Chris hasn't touched a predator since. Not any of these people from the second season on have ever been real child predators. The first season was great. And it was actually doing what it was supposed to be doing. Everything after that has been crap. And it's made me think that maybe even the first episode, since every single other episode, every single other season after the first season has been disingenuous crap, it makes me even question the first season. But anyway, that kind of an issue, the reason I bring up his show is because it's a classic example of that same problem that I was talking about before that Charles does, where he tries to divide us. The whole point of the show of To Catch a Predator is not to keep the streets safe. The point of the show is to find some loser who will play the part of being a quote-unquote child predator, which is really just a fool, and you just throw tomatoes at him. And that's what it is. The whole show is this fool comes on the stage and you throw rotten tomatoes at him and laugh. That's it. That's the whole show. That's the whole point of the entire show. Every single episode is exactly the same. They exploit these random people that go out and do this stupid crap or get caught or whatever you want to call it, however you want to put it. They're exploiting them, whether you want to agree with it or not. Oh, they're exploiting children, so it doesn't matter if they get exploited. They're still being exploited. It doesn't matter what they did to get there. They're still being exploited. It's kind of like saying, well, you can't exploit a child that has a gun that goes killing people. The child is going around with a gun and killing people because they're forced to do it through starvation or through gang membership, or some other force is making them do that. A kid doesn't randomly pick up a gun and start killing people. So to say that they can't be exploited because they're doing something wrong, that they're exploiting someone else. If you've got a little kid holding a gun against another little kid's head, okay, there's exploitation going on there. Just because the first kid was already exploited by an adult doesn't mean that the second kid wasn't exploited. And it doesn't mean that the first kid doesn't get exploited when he's exploiting the second kid. He's still being exploited actively because let's say you've got an adult named Bob and he holds a loaded gun against little Jimmy's head. So Bob is threatening little Jimmy and coercing little Jimmy. Little Jimmy is then forced to pick up a gun and point it at little Susie's head. So when you've got Bob threatening Jimmy, who's threatening Susie, Susie is being exploited and threatened by both Bob and Jimmy is being exploited and threatened by Bob. And who knows who Bob's being threatened by. It is not the case that you can argue that little Susie is not being exploited because little Jimmy is. That doesn't make any sense. So when somebody says that these child predators are not being exploited because they exploited children, it's the same as saying that somebody that's being threatened isn't being threatened because they threatened somebody else. So, in other words, if somebody randomly punches some other person in the face, and then they punch that person back, that's legit because that's self-defense, which is what that person who made that comment on YouTube that I'm referencing was trying to get at. The problem is, when you start talking about exploitation versus punching someone in the face, exploitation is a relation. It's not an objective act. It's something that you have to tease out who is in this role and who is in that role. And that's the conflation that's making you think they're the same thing. Because when somebody commits an evil act and you say, let's commit an evil act against them, everybody is then committing evil acts. That's why it says in the Latin maxim, way back in the Roman times, they knew better than you, guy, 1,000 years ago, when they said, 2,000 years, maybe even 3, you cannot commit evil that good may come of it. If I am Robin Hood and I go steal rich people's gold and give it to poor people, you say, the guy that made that comment that child exploiters can't be exploited, you would say that Robin Hood is a good guy, but he's a fucking thief. And what happens if everybody does that? What happens if everybody is Robin Hood? Oh, you only need one Robin Hood. How many Robin Hoods do you need? Do you only need one? Maybe you need 10. Maybe you need 1,000. Do you need how many do you need tomorrow? How many do you need the next day? There's no way to make that make any sense in a real world. It only makes sense in a stupid little kid fantasy land where you don't have to take the real world into account. That doesn't make sense to advocate for thievery. So let's say you steal from the richest guy. What about the second richest guy? What about the third richest guy? How many rich guys down the line is it from Robin Hood to the guy right above him? Let's say Robin Hood steals from his dad, who has 1 gold coin more than he does. Is he still Robin Hood? So that's why that doesn't make any sense, because you can't really advocate for it in a real world. You can only advocate it to a little kid who hasn't ever thought about it before and lives in a fantasy land where everything is made out of gumdrops and rainbows. And everything is so simple that not even thinking about it solves it. That's why I can't stand that, because whatever that is, that's what people think is cool. That's what people think is the culture that should be our cultural values, is to kill people that we don't like and have no idea that we're even doing it when we do it. Because it's not really killing, because it's not really exploitation, because it's not really threatening, because it's not really a fantasy land, except it is. So this culture that we have nowadays is like that. And so many people think that it makes sense because they've never thought about it. They've never actually thought about it because they go, it's so obvious, it's so obvious, it's so obvious. If it's so fucking obvious, why does it keep happening? If it's so obvious, why can't you explain any of it? If it's so obvious, why can't you even define it? If it's so obvious, why are we even here? Chris Hansen. So, like I keep saying, these shows that pretend to catch predators so that we can throw rotten tomatoes at fools and then call ourselves righteous for doing it is the same exact thing that the Caesar used to sell us when we were Roman slaves. Go to the Colosseum and watch people kill each other. It's exactly the same thing. You might even want to be a gladiator. Wouldn't that be cool to go smash some dude's head in with a sledgehammer? How difficult was that to come up with? How far removed from reality do you have to be to think that it would be fun to get into that kind of a situation on a daily basis and survive it over and over and over? Your lifespan is almost nil. You have almost a 0% chance of living to a year from now, because how many fights do you have to win in order to be free? Probably 100. And that's a 50-50 chance every single time you flip that coin. That's not fun. That's stupid. You're going to get killed, dumbass. And that's what happened to all the rest of them that thought that. They all died. It's stupid. And that's the culture that people support constantly because they don't think about it. They don't think about how much that costs, how far removed from reality that is, how little sense it makes when you actually think about it and try to integrate it into a real world scenario that makes sense. It won't. It won't fit. It only seems to make sense until you think about it. That's the culture that these people are supporting, if you can even call it that. It's really more of a virus. And it's spreading like wildfire. And people love that shit. They love killing people that they don't like. They love stealing from people that they're envious of. They love doing that. That doesn't mean that it's right just because they want to do it. They're not feeling good when they do it. They feel like killing someone. They feel that evil urge to kill. And deep down, they know it's evil because they can't defend it. All they can do is be more evil about it and do it even more. And when you look at their face and you hear their voice when they do it, they're pissed. They're angry. They're not happy. They're not saying, yay, I'm glad that all these people got murdered. They're not saying, yay, I'm glad that we killed another child molester with a real smile on their face of fulfillment. They're saying it with an evil grin. It's got this evil glint in their eye, this cynical, soul-destroying admission of the innate evil of creation. That's just the way the world is. You got to kill them and blah, blah, blah. That is an evil satanic lie. We don't have to live in that world. Our ancestors didn't. We don't have to either. We've learned to do that because we exist in an unnatural environment. And I would like to renaturalize this environment to make it authentic, honest, and have integrity. Not have bloodthirsty, wanton abandon, hatred for anybody that does something that you personally wouldn't do kind of a mentality, where you don't ever think about your opposition, where you actually consider trying to understand your opposition to be evil. That's the culture that I'm trying to really get at. I think that's the best example I can come up with. When somebody refuses to look at it from the other person's point of view and then advocates that that refusal is somehow good, they have reached pure fucking madness. I don't know of anything crazier than the idea of refusing to understand something as being touted as good. Yay, I don't get it. Yay, I'm not in a place of power. Yay, I'm disempowered and ignorant, and I have to be thrown into the wind like some random leaf blowing in some random direction because I have no idea about the forces that are driving me, because I don't want to know, because I want to be a leaf blowing around in the fucking wind like some inanimate object that doesn't have personhood, that doesn't make its own decisions, that just gets put in places and doesn't even realize it, because I'm a fucking leaf. Or not, if you don't want to be one. If you think you aren't, you are. If you think you are, you aren't. Thank you and goodbye.